Hey guys, we are in week 2 of my series on emotional fitness, emotional strength training. Last week, if you missed it, you might want to go back and catch it in the replays. And it's the overview of why this is important and how I really believe that it's crucial to overall life optimization and health optimization. And my idea with this series is that we're going to go through specific emotions each week. I'm just going to tell you what I know about them and how you can work with them and turn them into something that you feel like you're not battling with. And so today we're going to talk about anger. And I'm going to keep these recordings shorter so that they're easier and it doesn't take as much time to get through them. But hopefully, you'll get some information here that you might not get elsewhere and that you'll find useful for your own emotional fitness and life optimization. So I'm going to switch over now to the screen share that I have. And if you have any questions at the end, you can put them in the chat box or you can direct message me or reach out via Charleston Hypnosis Center or RebeccaTaylorshaw.com. So let me just pull this up. Make sure it's on silent. So move this little thing right here. All right. So emotional strength training, the A to Z of emotional fitness, missing layer of optimization. This week, we're going to be talking about anger, managing it, and releasing it. Just a little bit about me. I'm the owner of Charleston Hypnosis Center in the Charleston, South Carolina area. I've been here since 2006. And prior to that, I was a co-owner of Hypnosis Concepts in Newport Beach, California for 10 years. And I run an online school where I teach coaching and hypnosis. And so I'm a master trainer as well. I thought I'd start with the definition. What is anger? It's a natural human emotion. Everyone experiences it at some point, and it can be a response to a perceived threat, injustice, or an unmet need. We'll be going over that and what you can do about it. And and a really great conversational technique that you can start implementing today that I think will really change your life, honestly, if you're having to express anger. So anger can be both constructive and destructive. When we're looking at healthy anger, typically what you're talking about and the signs of that is that it's in response to a clear and present moment injustice and something that you feel is an injustice. And also healthy anger, the idea is that you can choose how to express it. It's not taking over, you're not being destructive. I used to tell my son he would get angry when his older sister, wouldn't share her toys. And I would say, it's okay to be angry that she won't share her toys. It's not okay to hit. So healthy anger, it's okay to be angry. It's just how you express it oftentimes that can be the unhealthy part. Um, Healthy anger typically passes once the issue is addressed. Unhealthy anger can be that thing that lingers, and we'll talk more about the unhealthy anger in a minute. And healthy anger can be used to set a boundary or solve a problem. A lot of times when people are growing from being more passive or not speaking up for yourself, not articulating your needs, allowing other people to take advantage of you. One thing that can happen is your anger will come forward. And sometimes it's like a pendulum. It'll go from never speaking your truth, never expressing when you're upset or angry about something and just bottling it up. Maybe you were taught that as a child to stuff it. And then you can go to the fire breathing dragon and the littlest things will set you off, which isn't healthy anger. But then for a lot of people, where they'll end up is in that in-between stage where they can express something they're angry about, they can set a boundary, solve a problem, and move on. This was a real breakthrough, I think, when I learned this in my 20s, and it's something that I think everyone should know and be aware of because it will help you diffuse anger. And when you're speaking about it, which I'll teach you that technique at the end of this presentation, it can help you to really be able to speak about the anger in a healthy, mature, empowered way. And that is to understand that oftentimes anger is what I call a cover up emotion. It's masking a deeper emotion that feels more vulnerable. So it can be masking fear. So if you think about anger masking fear, the example that comes to mind to me is you have a young child in your care and that child runs out into the street and you yell at the child, "Hey, don't run in the street." And you're yelling and you're angry. And then really what was underneath that anger was fear the child would get hurt. So oftentimes anger can be a cover up, hiding fear. It can also hide sadness. Let's say you were planning on having a date with your partner and they decided to go golfing instead, and you might show anger because it feels too vulnerable to say that you're sad that you're not going to see that person, or they made other plans, or they deprioritized you. And these are things to start thinking about. Covering up shame. Sometimes anger will be a cover up for shame. If someone calls you out on something, a criticism or something, and maybe it's how you're handling your money this month and you're ashamed because maybe in the past you had a bankruptcy, you might lash out in anger when really what's beneath that is shame. Now, these are just examples, but the main thing that you would want to do in any given moment is if you are in a state of emotional regulation, it doesn't mean you're not going to feel that emotion, but what it means is you're in agency, self-sovereignty about how you react to that emotion. So imagine emotions are like ocean waves, they come, they go. We'll get into the source of them even another layer deeper than this, but in the moment, what can be really powerful to improve your own self-awareness and your communication with other people is when you feel angry, before you speak up, before you would lash out, before you, or when you do tell someone you're angry, what you want to ask yourself is what's beneath this anger? And you can say it like this: okay, I'm angry right now. Is it because I'm afraid? Is there something I'm afraid of right now? And you think about the situation. Is there something I'm sad about right now? Think about the situation. Is there something I'm feeling ashamed about right now? And typically, it's going to be in most situations, unless we're talking about trauma based anger, which I'll get to in a few moments, but typically it's going to be one of these three things. So when you're feeling angry, ask yourself, what's underneath this anger? Am I afraid of something? Am I sad about something? Am I ashamed about something? And then that can lead you to this greater awareness, because then if you know the answer to that, you can get to a story, you can get to what's really going on here. And that can lead to much improved communication with people if you can share what's underneath the anger. And then oftentimes it can break the cycle of anger as well when you know what it's really all about. So obviously, anger can be destructive. It can keep you in a constant fight or flight loop if you're having problems with anger. Certainly, it can cause health issues, blood pressure going up, heart attack. It can lead to physical harm, you hurting yourself, you hurting someone else, destruction of property. I mean, these things are obvious. But what's one thing that's not so obvious is that if someone has a pattern of being angry, it can cause other people in their life to have what I call the walking on eggshells effect. And that means that you'll get into this dynamic where we all know the hothead and we know that this person's gonna pop off if like a door is left open in the house by accident by the kids or you when you're bringing groceries in. And, it's just, you'll know that person who the littlest thing sets them off. And then everyone else is walking on eggshells, trying to micromanage doing things so that we don't set this person off. And that creates a really unhealthy dynamic in relationships and with kids. So I would say of all these things, most people aren't in the habit of physically harming themselves, others, or property when they get angry. They might have health issues from it, like blood pressure. Certainly, you can have that ongoing kind of fight or flight loop, but most of all, I think the insidious one is that it's creating this walking on eggshells effect, which will lead people to not wanting to share truths with you, you not wanting to share truths with other people, just to try to keep the surface level dynamic calm. And unfortunately, that's just that over time becomes very destructive. When anger is rooted in trauma, it often feels like a choice more than a reflex. And it can be a reaction to something that's happening now, but it's rooted almost in a survival response, that old fight or flight that comes from a feeling of needing to protect things that may be rational or irrational. And if it's coming from childhood, oftentimes it's rooted in some old feeling of being powerless and then something today re-triggering that. And so, how do you know if something is what I would call a trauma based anger or something like that? Basically, the greatest, easiest way to tell is if that anger seems overboard for the situation. So it's called disproportionate intensity, but that's one of the clearest signs. If you feel like you see someone or you yourself are just overboard with the anger for the situation, then that might be your sign that this is triggering some old unresolved issues. And typically it goes back to childhood and it's a protective measure. And when I'm working with people in hypnotherapy, this is one of the things. If the emotion seems any emotion, not just anger, if it seems overreactive, overboard for the situation, disproportionate intensity for the situation, that's and it's chronic, that's always a sign that you would want to clear what that's rooted in order to release the pattern. Hypervigilance and a short fuse. So again, if you're constantly on edge, um, you're hyper vigilant about situations and your snap reaction is to get angry and you're already halfway into fight or flight before this thing even unfolds. Again, that's that sign that you might be dealing with anger that's rooted in trauma. And if it is rooted in trauma, basically you're going to need some outlets for sure. And it's kind of funny when I was making this slide because it's like, duh, who doesn't know that, these are the kind of things that you should do to relieve anger, but I'm going to put them in here. Go for a run, do something physical. And what I will say about that is if you're wanting to teach your children emotional fitness, it's not just what you tell them, it's what you emulate for them. And so I was just working with a client this week whose mother was very, very anxious going into doctor's offices, dentist appointments, emergency room. Her mother would literally scream. And so her mom was not emulating how to deal with stressful situations. So let's say, I believe in, some transparency with your kids, because those could be teaching moments. So if you're feeling angry about something, it could be okay for you to tell your child you're angry and then say, would you like to go shoot some baskets with me? Or I want to get some energy out. I'm feeling frustrated or angry about this situation, but it's going to get resolved. Let's go kick the soccer ball. You could do something like that. If you're more artistic, maybe you're going to paint or draw to express some of that anger. Certainly, talking with a friend is probably the most common one. And there's two different types of talking with a friend one is definitely, I think, overall healthier. So you can talk with a friend and throw someone under the bus, or you can talk with a friend to try to talk through what this is really about. That might be discovering through talking with someone, not just thinking it through yourself. What's really at stake here? Am I afraid? Am I sad about something? Um, am I ashamed? Typically, it's not shame, but it's typically sadness or fear. And then through that, basically, again, going back to becoming sovereign, is that you're going to, want to figure out what that story is. And if that story is valid, if it's working for you, and if you could change that story. When you change the story, then you'll change the emotion. So relaxation techniques can be good. Learning mindfulness would be helping you to not have that knee-jerk reaction when you're, typically angry. It again, whether it's deep breathing, mindfulness, imagery, the idea is emotional regulation is that the emotion does happen. You're not numb. You're not controlling the emotion. You're controlling your response to the emotion. And that's power. Because emotions come up all the time and we don't always have control of them. And certainly many of them come from the subconscious. They come from our deep-seated beliefs and thoughts and ideas about things. And over time, you can change those things. But in the moment, you regulate how you respond. So you get to choose and be in choice about how you respond. And some of these techniques will actually help you with that, to unhook from that knee-jerk reaction to a situation, or knee-jerk reacting to lashing out when you're angry, to being able to have that gap and awareness to calm yourself and then choose your response versus allowing it to just take over automatically. Cognitive restructuring. This would be something you would do with a cognitive behavioral therapist, a psychologist, and that's identifying the negative thoughts. I do this in my hypnotherapy practice. I'm not a psychologist, so I don't diagnose anyone, but I do teach systems like this for making you more aware of how to restructure your thoughts, because when you have different thoughts, you have different feelings. And basically, it could be challenging that negative thought. Is it still true? Is it the truth? Is there a different way to think of this situation where you could be calmer? Because when you reframe it and you think of it differently, you're going to feel differently. You can learn to develop coping strategies like we were talking about in the previous slide, mindfulness, breathing, guided imagery, and just overall being more aware of the emotion versus just kind of unconsciously reacting to it. Because if you're unconsciously reacting to it, you're never in a place of power to understand where it comes from and then how you could change that pattern. Hypnotherapy for anger. I think if you're in a situation where you feel like, I know what to do, I know where it comes from, I know why it's happening, and you're in that conscious awareness, maybe you've already done some therapy or some self work, and you're like, I'm still stuck, then you might want to try hypnotherapy, because what it's really good at, that other modalities are not, is getting down to the subconscious level and making changes with your thoughts, your beliefs, healing old memories, PTSD, regression therapy, going back in time where your mind took on that pattern to be angry, and then clearing that emotion at that deeper level of the subconscious mind reframing the memory and then giving yourself an ability to empower yourself with a different takeaway. Um, Hypnosis is fantastic for emotional regulation because you slow down your body, deeply relax, and it just almost like everything begins to slow down so you can be aware of an emotion and still create that split second or that gap where you're in choice of how to respond. And hypnosis itself is great for stress management. So anger, if you're struggling with anger, hypnotherapy may be a way to go. On the emotional level, there is no such thing as time for unhealed emotions. And what I mean by that is if your anger goes back to situations in your childhood that were extreme, you felt very powerless, you were victimized some way or another. Your anger could be healthy. It could be acting on your behalf, saying, if I encounter anything that even seems close to this, I am going to protect myself. And so there could be a good intention with that anger, but again, it hasn't gotten the update that you're an adult now, that you are a sovereign being, that you're in choice about who you have in your life and to what extent you have them in your life. But sometimes it's just some of those memories need a different way to get healed if they don't heal on them on their own. And again, I'm partial to hypnotherapy for that, but there are other ways. I think EMDR might even be good for this. Um, Here's the thing you've got to know. It's not the situation that makes you angry in most cases. Now, put aside the PTSD or trauma-based anger, but in everyday life, for most of us, it's not the situation that makes you angry. You can put two people in the same situation and one experiences anger and the other's mildly amused. And I put the image here of someone slipping on a banana peel. Um, I know people in my life that would be really pissed off if that happened and fricking and fracking and cursing and yelling at the banana peel and whoever left it there on the ground. And me personally, if I fell on banana peel, I would probably laugh at myself and imagine the scene in my mind of how ridiculous I looked when I fell on my butt. But so same situation, and it's all about your narrative, your story, and your attitudes and beliefs that really do generate how you're going to respond. And so if you're finding that you are angry about things, sometimes having a sense of humor, not taking things so seriously is a great way to go and a great attitude to adopt. Each emotion, and this will be everything in our series, is an invitation pointing to a deeper insight, both with yourself and others, if you approach it with a spirit of curiosity or exploration. So, what oftentimes happens, and this is especially true for an emotion like anger, if you're finding that you have problematic anger, you may just not want to look at it because it's a facet of yourself you don't like. It's a shadow aspect of yourself. And oftentimes, if something's a shadow for us, we don't want to think about it. We may not want to look at it, own it, or work on it. We know it's there, but all of us want to be loved. All of us would, in a perfect world, like to be perfect. But if you can approach that problem emotion with a spirit of curiosity. What's this about? Where's this coming from? Is this because I'm really sad about something? Is it really that I'm afraid of something? Be curious with yourself. Be non judgmental with yourself because you cannot break a pattern if you're rejecting it, shoving it in the shadows of your mind, disowning it, and refusing to explore it. So if you shift into that curiosity, that's the point where you start to be able to learn to be different with it because you're going to gather more information from a perspective of being curious versus judgmental. I said this in the first one, and I'll probably say this again, but think of emotions that are like email. They're messages from your subconscious mind. They come from your thoughts and beliefs. Don't block them. be open to what they're about, what message they're bringing to you. And really the intention is to guide you. Some of them are to keep you safe. If you're in a dark alley and someone's coming at you, you may get angry and that might save your life, putting you into fight or flight, kicking in your adrenaline. So again, there are times and places where anger is appropriate and could save your life. And then there are a lot of times when you're in non-threat situations where that anger comes up and you want to look at it as a message coming from the subconscious. It's pointing you typically to limiting beliefs, old beliefs that are outdated and that you need to update in order to be optimal in your mind, body, and spirit. He who knows others is wise. He who knows himself is enlightened. Lao Tzu. I love that quote. And that's what this whole journey with your emotions is about. Okay, so here's the best part of what I wanted to share with you today. We're close to the end here is the healthy anger communication formula. So when you're angry with someone and you want to talk about it, you want to own it as a narrative, a story. And so what you would do is tell the person how you're feeling. And honestly, you could do this for many emotions. So you'll probably see this um, frame again, this slide again, when we're talking actually even next week about anxiety. But you're going to talk about the emotion. I'm feeling angry, and then this is what's happening. And but what you want to frame it as and is this is my story. So this happened and my story is. So for let's give an example. You have a date planned with your honey and they're supposed to come over at 5 o'clock and you're going to have dinner on a Friday. And then last minute, that person cancels. And maybe this has happened a few times and you're feeling angry. So you sit there and you ask yourself, okay, I'm angry. What's that covering up? Is it covering up fear? It could be covering up fear that this person doesn't value me, fear. And these things could be stories that are rational or irrational. Fear that this person's losing interest, fear that I can't trust this person. I mean, we could go on and on with the fears. It could be sadness. Oh, I'm sad because I was really looking forward to spending time with this person and having dinner, and now the dinner's cold and whatnot. So it could be sadness, right? So you would want to share with that person, you showed up late tonight. I felt angry. And what I realized is underneath that anger, I felt sad. I was really looking forward to seeing you. And my story, this is where you want to own it as a story. It's so important, guys, because when you own it as a story, you're presenting it in a way that's non-threatening because you're saying, this is my lens through how I'm looking at it. You're not saying it's the truth. You're saying, this is my story. And then you're opening up the dialogue for being so much more healthy. So my story is that you don't appreciate me, or my story is you don't respect me. And then you can pause. And in that moment, if you're with a good person, they're probably going to say, oh, I'm so sorry. That's not true, da, da, versus if you say, you don't respect me, you disrespect me, you don't appreciate me, then you're saying what sounds like a truth. And then people have to defend themselves. And the moment that you do that, you're putting yourself in a court of law, hypothetically, metaphorically with that and putting them completely on the defense mode. Versus if you say, this is my story and my story is, you're owning it, you're understanding it. And sometimes those stories can be based on our old stuff. It would be like, you're supposed to hear back from someone and you don't hear back from them that night and you get very anxious and upset. And you tell them, my story is when I didn't hear back from you is that um, you're not interested in me anymore. Let's say it's a dating situation again. And and then you maybe know that that's the first time it's happened with this person. That seems overboard for the situation. Maybe it's because you've had dating experiences in the past where that's what it actually meant. And so, but when you say it's your story, that person you can have a talk about it. And you may even have to say, I've had a history in the past where this is what it meant. And this was my story. And it just completely changes the energy of those conversations, the dynamic. And oftentimes you can suggest a solution. They can suggest a solution. It will radically improve your communication with people if you can use this formula. And this is how you would do it for anger. All right. So this is just to finish up today. All your emotions are part of your inner feedback loop. They're messages from the subconscious. They're your personal truth, your story, not your universal truth. And you can't selectively numb. If you're trying to numb anger, somehow, some way, you're probably going to be numbing joy too. And that's not fun. That's my story. So they provide intuitive guidance. They can show you where you need to heal your past, where you need to heal your belief systems and upgrade your beliefs so you can feel happier and healthier and more optimized. So that is my presentation today, our first emotion in the A to Z of emotional fitness. If you have any questions, you can direct message me. If you like this video, make sure to like it so I can know what people are enjoying and resonating with. And if you have questions and want to work with me directly, you could check out my website at RebeccaTaylorshaw.com. Have a great week and make life even better when you can have a different relationship with your emotions, like we're talking about.